We are back, BlockShow, Singapore, 2019. We're here. Oh, Marina Sands is beautiful. I don't know if you guys ever been to even Singapore. I have to tell you, I've never seen construction like this. The architecture is, you feel like you're on Pandora, all right? There's stuff happening out here that's absolutely crazy. Really excited. Another guest we have. Please introduce to the world right now, BlockShow, Cointelegraph, and DLive, who you are, what you do, and what you've been working on.
Yeah, so my name is Larry Cermak. I work for the Block. I'm the director of research there. So we mostly, we're a media and research company. So we compete a little bit with Cointelegraph, a little bit with CoinDesk, but I'm not really responsible for that. I'm responsible for research.
Okay.
And so we have a research operation. Basically, we charge customers a subscription price for the research that we produce, and we mostly focus on institutional clients. So it's a little higher priced, but it's not it's not really for retail investors. We have a lot of clients in VC, a lot of hedge funders, some old traditional finance people.
Right.
So that's what I do every day. We have a team of 5 people, and that's basically my responsibility. In the past 13 months since I joined the Block, we basically grew from 0 customers, 0 viewership, to now more than 500,000 a month.
Wow.
And we're selling quite a bit of subscription. I can't really share the numbers, but it's going pretty well. Yeah.
Good for you. Congratulations,
Thank
by
you.
the way. And I would say what must be a part of this success is the lack of knowledge and experience in knowing fintech and having the innovation mindset to know how that is going to change, and you need that data set to
exactly.
look at that.
So I'll give a little bit of an introduction to my background. So I basically got actively into Bitcoin in late 2016. I was in college and I was writing my thesis, and I decided to write about Bitcoin, but look at it from the economic perspective.
Okay.
And so when I was doing research and writing my thesis, I really saw that there was no academic research whatsoever, and there was no data-driven research whatsoever back then. It was still really early, but at the same time, there were already a lot of people interested in Bitcoin, but it was mostly the people that were like, oh, it's the best thing ever.
Right.
It's going to replace all the fiat currencies. It's going to be the future. No central banks ever. And that didn't excite me, right? I wanted to look at what's actually going on, the adoption, how many people are actually there, and look at all the interesting data-driven points that I could find. So I wrote my thesis, and then right after that, I got a job offer to work for a research company in crypto called Diar. So I worked there for about a year and a half, and then I got a job offer to work for the Block and build my own research team. So I've been doing that, and basically it all started from me realizing that there was no solution for what I was trying to do.
Right.
There was no one doing this, no one looking at data without really any bias. So I was, one of the things that I'm fairly unusual in this space is that I don't have any holdings. So I don't have any Bitcoin, I don't have any Ethereum. I would probably want to, but I want to stand biased. So I want to.
That's a great. And
a lot of people hate on it. A lot of people say,
nope,
you have no skin in the game. I view it differently. I view it as I used to have a Bitcoin exposure. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2014, and I used to know what it actually meant, right? I kept checking prices. I only followed what was happening there. And even though that's interesting, I wanted to do it a little bit differently. I wanted to be a little bit, I wanted to be as unbiased as possible, and I started the research arm with that vision.
Did you realize when you started to do the research that folks with their blinders on in the Bitcoin need to kind of pull that down and realize there's so many things, the butterfly effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that it's going to change that price.
Yeah.
And it's going to be that little, that guy that woke up somewhere in another part of the world and just shifted slightly.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And it was just unreal to me that no one was doing it at that time. There were very few people that actually looked at what was going on data-wise. And when you don't do that, you usually tend to make choices that are philosophically driven, right? And that normally, sometimes it doesn't manifest itself. So I always just try to do it what's actually going on and then make my choices based on that.
Okay.
And I think our readers like that because it's very hard to trust anyone in this space, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone has some kind of financial interest, and that's okay as well, right? It makes people passionate. It makes people passionate. But for research, I really do believe that it's, at least for me, it's better to not have any exposure, but we do have team members that do, and I think that's fine as well. It's just my personal decision.
Okay, good. I hold a similar position to that. I'm a product developer by trade, and I think that once you start getting too caught up in what coin, you're not looking at the other available outlets that you should expose yourself to.
Yeah.
And why limit yourself when we're rebuilding economies at this time? So what's been something surprising that you can talk about? Now, this guy charges a lot of money for information. So we're getting some data here.
Yeah, let's do it.
What's some surprising areas of interest that popped up in front of you in the blockchain application world?
So I'll tell you what's interesting first, data-wise. A lot of people ask me, like, what's going on this bull run? There was this run from 4K to like 11K. We really don't cover prices, so we don't look at that. We look at market forces, what's going on. And what's interesting about this kind of like little run when compared to 2017 and early 2018 is that there's not that much retail people involved. Right. So it's mostly large position traders that are trading really, large positions in my opinion, and kind of pushing the price. So it's not that many retail investors, and in my opinion, it's because we're still at less than 50% of the all-time high. A lot of people got burned in that run, and now they're a little bit more hesitant to go back.
Right.
So there's not that much retail. So I think that's one of the most important things. You can look at any kind of data you want, like traded volume on retail exchanges. You can look at new followers on like exchange Twitter accounts. None of that is moving. So there's not much retail. I think that's I think that people don't really realize. So it's better to be a little bit careful because there are really large traders that can actually influence what's going on, and as opposed to just a lot of small people.
Is there a correlation between the S&P 5 and the Bitcoin price?
So there appeared to be some for a tiny bit of time, right? Like I think like 2 months ago, there was some negative correlation when S&P crashed a little bit because of the trade problems with China.
Right.
Bitcoin usually tended to go up, and a lot of people started saying, it's becoming a macro. It's starting to get connected to macro. It's becoming a hedge for the economy.
Right.
I don't agree with that. I think that there were some signals that could hint at that happening, but it was just such a small sample size, right? You can't just look at 1 month of what's going on and say that it's the trend. And now we see like 2 months later that it's not happening anymore.
So
the S&P is hitting all-time highs right now.
But we're not seeing that correlation.
Yeah, the correlation is no longer really there.
Right.
And the relationship with China has since improved a little bit. So I'm always skeptical when people say that, like Bitcoin will be the best thing when the economy crashes. I'm not so sure. I think it could be, but I think it's better to proceed with caution.
Okay. In your day-to-day, what's a little bit of advice you can give our users to make your life easier and what you do, and how can you give them a little bit of advice to make their lives easier?
So I would always just advise people to look at the people that you're listening to, the people that you follow on Twitter, anyone that you make your decisions based on. Just look into like what could be their interests, right? Like look into why they could be saying these things, because sometimes there is a reason, and so it's always better to just try to make your own opinions, try to look at the data yourself, and then make your own choices. So some of the research articles that I write, I try to not even sometimes like make any conclusions. I try to just present everyone with the same data set, and then people can make their own conclusions. And that happens all the time, right? Everyone has a different philosophy. So I'm never going to say that crypto or Bitcoin will replace all the central banks. I don't think that. I'll never think that. But there are people that do, and that's fine. So, but I just would
people still write checks. So
yeah, exactly. And I would just advocate people to really try to look at the data and think themselves. Don't listen to anyone, not even me sometimes. Just look at what's going on, look at what's actually going on, and then think for yourself. Okay.
And on a side note, on a completely personal note, what sector fascinates you? Gaming? What's that fascinates you in that world?
So I think that permissionless finance, I think is extremely interesting. I don't get why people hate on it so much. They say it's too it's too early on. It's done by people that don't understand finance at all. I think like it's true to some aspects of it are true. It's still extremely early on, but I think permissionless finance has its place in this ecosystem. Okay. It is really powerful to not be able to rely on anyone to make your own financial choices. It's really powerful for people that don't have access to these services. But it's important to realize that it's still years ahead.
Right.
I think it's going to happen, but it's probably not going to happen in the next 2 years. It's like a 5-year thing. So that definitely excites me. I think there's a future there as well. What also excites me is some use cases that basically can get people that are normally not interested in Bitcoin and Ethereum involved in cryptocurrencies and permissionless transactions. So for example, NFT gaming is interesting to me. And that's because I don't really care that much about the games, but I think that if it's implemented right, and you basically do it in a way that the in-game assets, for example, cannot be confiscated, they cannot be taken away, and you actually own them themselves. If there's a game that actually accomplishes that and gains massive adoption, that can introduce so many people in crypto.
All right.
And that's what's interesting. I think similar thing happened with Libra this year. It has nothing to do with cryptocurrency, right? It's mostly just a stable coin, a basket of different currencies. It's based on some kind of distributed ledger. But because people started like doing their own research, they started getting more involved in Bitcoin and other permissionless aspects of cryptocurrency, which I think is really exciting. And the same thing is happening right now with China. 2 weeks ago, when Chinese president said that they're going to start investing in crypto, in blockchain, that they didn't basically talk about Bitcoin, any other cryptocurrencies, but obviously it interested people, and they wanted to look into history of blockchain, look into all of that, and that gets them thinking about what's actually going in cryptocurrencies, what's going with Bitcoin, what's going on with Ethereum. So I think that's really, really exciting.
All right, well, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for imparting those words of wisdom on us. Live Nation, we'll talk to you. D-Live, we'll talk to you in a little bit. And thanks for stopping by.
All right.